I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. I've mentioned many times on this program that I love science fiction. I like a lot of the old B movies from the 50s and 60s. But there is one B movie that I love that is a hard time fitting into the science fiction category. But if I were to remake it or reboot it, I would make it a movie that deals with alien signals making contact with some lonely farmer with a shortwave radio. The movie I'm talking about is called The Next Voice You Hear. It's a little-known 1950s movie. It stars our former First Lady, Nancy Reagan. I mean, she was then known as Nancy Davis. And also stars James Whitmore. And they both play this humble married couple named Joe and Mary Smith. They're farmers. And it was based on a short story called The Next Voice You Hear. It was by George Summer Albee. And the voice is never heard by the audience. The frustration that I had with the film is that the protagonist, Joe Smith, would tell everyone that he heard a voice speak to him through his radio, and when he tried to find others to listen, some unforeseen circumstances would come up, and the person wouldn't hear the voice. The voice comes on the radio one evening, while he's relaxing and listening to a radio program. Instead of the familiar radio show coming on, there's this voice who says that he is God. And the message is, this is God. I'll be with you for the next few days. And we never really hear the voice, but we see that the farmer is shaken. And he's telling his wife and son what happened. Now, Mary, Joe's wife, tells her husband that she feels it's a hoax, like one of those radio shows that Mr. Wells created. Of course, she's referring to Orson Welles in the War of the Worlds broadcast. Well, the next day is typical, and in that life, it goes on, and during time goes by, and then the lunch conversation is about this voice that he heard. And it's revealed that the voice was heard on every radio station at the same time. And at the time, I think it was the Hayes office before the FCC, but let's just say for arguments, the FCC looking into this voice and investigating whether there was a break in local radio programming. And so it goes for 6 nights, each time with a short message from God. Some people react with fear and others with scorn, but Joe is struck by the intrusion of the supernatural into his life. And then he turns his thoughts inward and starts examining himself. And even though the movie is solidly set in a time more than 60 years ago, it's very timeless, because who can't relate to living as you do and suddenly being confronted with the fact that something otherworldly is speaking to you? And that forces an inner conflict and soul-searching. I heard that small voice in my head. I heard that voice tell me to move, and I did, and I avoided getting killed. That voice told me to check on the baby, and when I did, there was a man standing over the crib. You've all had that. You've had that feeling. You've had that voice. That someone or something is trying to communicate with you. Now, while the film The Last Voice You Hear is about a voice claiming that it's God, we've seen many times over the years where films have tried to convey the message that we're not alone. That something's out there, whether it be an alien, whether it be a God, whether it be an angel, something's out there. We're not alone. And today in films, God doesn't speak through radios, but extraterrestrials do. And while many people are expecting a voice that sounds human speaking to them through radio or telescope, the reality may be as simple as a few chirps and warbles. In the 1997 film Contact, there was a message sent to Earth by extraterrestrials that was interlaced with data. The message, of course, was Hitler's speech during the 1936 Olympics, which had scientists worried. The communication at first sounded like scrapes and chirps. But after the data was analyzed, it was learned that embedded in the code was footage of a swastika imprinted flag waving over the stadium where the Olympics were held. Now, the message of the film was very similar to that we hear in The Next Voice You Hear, and that is when contact is made, will it be an experience that will be spiritual, or will it be something more tangible, more nuts and bolts? Well, it doesn't really matter if you believe or don't believe in aliens or UFOs. We're now having a cultural awakening, and this cultural awakening is awakening to the possibility as vibrant and valid as a belief or non-belief in God. Mythologies are sacred in some circles, and in others they're dismissed, and yet the archetypes in them never leave us, and they continue in other forms. And with even more manifestation, and with more manifestation, we have skeptics that are curious. And when people have these experiences, it hardens their resolve. The experiencers, true believers harden their resolve with something's there. I felt it. I saw it. I've experienced it. I have people sending me pictures. There was a listener that sent me pictures, or actually it was video, of flying triangles that he saw over Ohio. They were amazing. Somebody else sent me a picture of something that was hiding in a mist. It looked like an alien gray. And I'm going, wow. And see, that's the thing, is that everything dealing with these anomalies, whether it be flying triangles or aliens or demons or whatever, it's often found in video. It's often found in blurry pictures. It's often found, and that's the difficulty. That's the biggest difficulty of all, is trying to say, look at this picture, and people say, well, I can see how it can be faked. I can see how it's pareidolia. I can see how it's this. I can see, and I just say, well, okay. And I was at a Bigfoot festival. I think it was, and one of the investigators had said that they don't even look at videos of Bigfoot anymore. They don't even care about them anymore. What they really care about is whether or not there's a cast of the foot, whether or not there's hair found or scat found. They don't care about the videos because they know that the videos can be faked. But one thing, if you know, and if you've listened to my program and maybe even George Norrie's program or some other programs that deal with this type of material, one of the most unimpeachable things is audio of anomalies, whether it be a howling monster-like creature in the forest like Bigfoot, or some strange sounds that are emanating from space, or from some other part of the world, or some other part of the universe. Tonight we have those sounds for you, and we're going to play them for you. And some other things we're going to talk about that are going to open your eyes to this new paradigm that is shifting as we speak.